I haven't, I guess as a spiritual teacher, it's even kind of how I held my teacher as a teacher, as a higher in the hierarchy of life, someone with answers, someone to emulate.
So you're describing the way a child sees their parent,
right,
or the way a friend sees their friend.
Right.
So
what's the problem?
No difference, yeah.
Is it a problem? No.
Well, it's not for me, because if someone loves me, they're loving the right person.
Right.
If they're loving me for my genuineness. And so I am so at home with that.
Right.
And love is the power. And if we can love one human being, we get a hit of our own capacity to love.
I totally get that.
And it goes, eventually it's not what people who question what they believe come to see that it's not that person outside of them that is giving them that. It's an experience, and it comes from their thoughts about that teacher. And that's what they're loving. The story of my teacher is this, this, and this. So again, that's who people believe me to be. Now, people who see me as the extreme opposite, whatever that may be, like something very negative, okay, that's what they use to separate themselves from me. And if they use it with me, they use it with their own children, just like the other way, from the other polarity. But if people say, Katie, I don't like you, I immediately understand, how could they like me? Look what they believe about me.
What might that be? I mean,
Well, it would be if we look at what we think as a human race, as the immature mind, I would say immature mind meaning the unquestioned mind, the mind that believes what it thinks. And we look at that, it's like, I don't like her hair, or she sounds very angry, or she's angry, or she doesn't look kind. She's like the man in your example where I said, what are you doing? And you projected that
right.
as someone you wouldn't want to be with. And I projected it as someone I'd really want to be with, because he sounds like someone that doesn't censor, is straight up, not trying to impress anyone, a genuine human being that I could trust if I ask for a question. Like, will you help me? He may say no. And I really appreciate that, because it shows me where I'm to go next. So it's like everything is as it should be. But if I had a story about the tone of his voice, etc., I'm lost. So back to teacher.
Right.
I love when people love me. Why wouldn't they if they were of sound mind?
Right.
Knowing that if they loved me, they would love the next and the next and the next. In other words, their siblings, their parents, their children. It means they have their heads together. And then if they haven't worked through everything, eventually they'll project that onto me, and they'll no longer love me. And love is as the human condition, the mind understands love. Actually, personalities do not love. They want something. And when they don't get it, they shift, mind shifts. It becomes frightened for the identity that it's taken on.
Anybody can be the teacher, the student, you can be.
Well, we all are.
Everything.
We all are. It's like, where did you learn that? Oh, from my brother. Where did you learn that? From my 3-year-old daughter. Where did you learn that? From my aging 95-year-old grandmother.
Right.
We're all teachers.
Right.
And we're all students.
Also with the book, it's amazing how I'm sure for different people, different things resonate. Mm-hmm. As my body moves, I hear each step on the hardwood floor as if it were mine. This step, then the next, then the next. I experience everything in slow motion. More accurately, I experience everything frame by frame by frame. Each moment is a frame for me, not necessarily connected with any other.
Without the I know mind, everything just is. And there's no reference as a you. You could say there's no reference for a past. So it's like now. And in fact, my hand did this, and then it did that. That's a whole new identification, one not connected to the other. I'm not the doer.
So, just alleviates a lot of stress for me.
That's why I invite people to question the thoughts. Wherever you are, under any circumstances, can you be happy from here? That's your nature, it's your birthright. And then if a wife and children appear, what an amazing world.
Right.
And for now, here you are, it appears. So people's minds are into Friday, imagined Friday, and they miss the experience of life and live life as imagination.
Right. Friday's either stressful or not stressful, depending on how you think about it.
Yes. Not how you think about it, but Friday doesn't exist other than in your mind.
Right,
so what is happening Friday? Is it something, is what you're believing a happy thing or a dreaded thing? And that's all.
Right. That's it.
That's it. So I invite everyone to get a future. It's just if you don't love it, I'd question your thoughts about it. And, I also invite people who want to know the future. People are so interested in the future. Well, here it is. This is it.
Frame by frame by frame, right?
Well, in the way I'm speaking, this is it.
Right.
No frame. This is it.
Right.
And if we're discussing imagined time or realities, then if you go back to the little child that you were when you were lying in bed maybe, or sitting out in the sun under a tree or something, and you had the thought, what would you be when you're your father's age? Or what would you be when you grow up? What is your life going to look like? Well, you go back to that little boy and say, here I am, this is it, questions answered.
Right.
End of the mystery, this is
Right.
the future.
What does this mean? I often say that if I had a prayer, it would be this: God, spare me from the desire for love, approval, or appreciation.
So seeking love, approval, and appreciation is like living, it's living as a slave. A person would immediately, seeking love, approval, and appreciation, would immediately project what they need to say, do, how they need to move, what they need to all of that to win your approval.
Right.
And so, they create a facade and, whatever they think you would approve of. And then when you say you care about that person, they never believe you because the person you're caring about doesn't exist and they know it. With a facade, the way I used to live, people liked me or they didn't. Without a facade, people liked me or they didn't. So I'm free and people are left with what they believe about me and it's all good.
So what's changed is you. But that's all there is to you. And when you were going for approval, what you thought people thought mattered.
Oh my goodness, that's why I say, it's slavery. Who enslaves us? We do. It's like, what will he, what will she, what will they think of me if I wear this, if I say that, if I do. So everything's always censored. So we can be that facade that we think they'll approve of.
Right.
So, people who question their mind begin to understand there's nothing we can do to manipulate or control another person's mind, that it's it's difficult enough and hard enough to know our own.
Right.
That's enough. As you continue to question your mind, you just come to love you the way you are and just find it fascinating that other people don't, and you understand why they wouldn't, because they are believing their thoughts about you.
Right.
And I say if I had a prayer because I would pray in a heartbeat if there was something I wanted. But when you have everything, when everything is just the way it's supposed to be, perfect, and just for you, what would you change?
Is prayer
Nothing.
Is prayer about change?
Prayer is it's about it's the attempt to dictate through a plea on another reality.
I used to pray. When I was in Jewish high school, yeshiva high school, and we used to pray. And I just also remember I just did it to do it because everybody was doing it, and we were expected to do it. And we were also told that if you did it because it's the law, that in itself was enough. And then later, maybe one day the intentionality would come. And I just never kind of got it.
Well, is that true?
It's
that could be why you're so open to something else. Everything counts. And I hear you.
Right.
And
so it could
if I were in a box with no way out and frightened, I might scream for God's help.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's a prayer. So I think, and also prayers that people do daily, I think is a wonderful thing because they're coming out of what's good and what's beautiful. And so that is truer to our nature, truer to their nature, and they feel better for it.
I can totally
because
get it.
they like themselves when they're thinking of others and themselves and good.
Right.
So it's kind of an escape from the mind that would see what's wrong with everything, including oneself.
Right.
They're kinder thoughts.
Right.
Thoughts for others. Thoughts for yourself. And
well, what's wrong with that?
nothing. I'm for it.
Right.
And if people question their stressful thoughts, that's all they're left with. So I call this unceasing prayer. This what's left, unceasing prayer, unceasing meditation, but it's the prayer answered. So it's living as the answered.
Right. So if there's prayer, great, and if there's not prayer, fine.
Well, it doesn't mean anything other than many people feel better when they do.
Right.
It's like making ourselves feel better. It's
Right.
like comforting ourselves.
Yeah.
And I might have the thought, for example, God help me. Well, I'm a very impatient person, so I would turn around saying, Katie, help yourself.
Right.
And there's another turnaround, Katie, help God. And that's a beautiful thing. And if God were loving, what would he be? Everything. And that would include me. And so my arms are always open.
Because there's, just talking about prayer in the book, when Roxanne was having her babies and didn't look too good. And her in-laws grabbed your hand and said, will you pray with us? Mm-hmm. And so you did.
I was just very happy to.
Right.
I was just very happy to listen to them. And I'm always open to something that I want. I just don't, I can't identify it. Every time I identify it, I already have it.
Right. And when Roxanne was going through that, or you heard her screaming, or I think you heard her screaming.
Oh yeah, it was amazing. There was no staff there for it. It was amazing. They were looking for the janitor. It was just, and then when the door did open, there was so much blood in that room, and there was no way to know if one person in there doing surgery with no assistance, and the assistance that they did have wasn't a doctor. And anyway, it's the mind can do a lot of things, but when you know there's no mistake, then it's just all good. You just watch. You just watch, and it's like being.
And that's what you did, right?
Yes, and it's like being a hawk. The awake mind is the awake untroubled mind is it's just like this. It's just like a beam, and it just looking for basically how can I help? Because it's always okay. It's always untroubled. It's always ready to spring into help. That's its nature. And there's nothing to stop it because there's no fear.
It strikes me as really an amazing story. And then what I also see is that being that way in that situation, it seems to me to be the most helpful because it's the way it is. What's happening, and I didn't go through that, so I'm speaking as like something I'm seeing new from something I didn't go through. Mm-hmm. So, but when I look, I see, well, that would be the way to be.
Well, it's the way that everyone wants to be, just alert to what is, in the moment, in a position to serve.
Right.
And awake to what to serve. You're not looking for something, you're waiting. And when it's there, boom, you've got it. Right. It's just so obvious, it's reality. Right. The difference between reality and imagination.
And everything turned out okay,
Yeah, well...
But you don't know that,
yes,
you only know that now.
Yes, you know. Yes, you do.
You do.
Yes, the baby lives, good. The baby doesn't live, good. There's nothing outside of that.
Right.
There is no duality. There's no positive and negative. It's all positive. And the mind would give you every reason to believe otherwise. And then the body experiences that as stress.
Now, just to talk about the I can't do it, I can't do it sometimes, but I can get past it mostly, and not always.
When you think I can't do it, your mind will give you all the reasons why that's true. So if you put those on paper and question them, it doesn't leave much I can't do it.
Right.
It leaves, when you have the thought I can't do it, you can immediately go to, how would I know that? That's just a theory.
A thought, right?
Yeah, it's like, well, you can't know that you can't. And you can't know that you can. It's just that one is easier than the other. One is less in your way because there's less trail to prove it.
Which is easier, the I can't?
I can.
I can is easier?
Sure. Because when you believe I can, your mind immediately trails into ways and options of pulling it off. But when you believe I can't do it, your mind immediately is showing you all the reasons you can't.
Right.
So either way, when you believe it, the mind supports that.
Right.
That's how you continue to believe. So with this mind, the way it's working from here, like my mind is everyone's mind, and the way it speaks and lives and exists and believes from here is, if someone says, Katie, you can't do it, I think, they could be right, and who knows? I don't have to go rah, 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 yes, I can. Who knows? They could be right. Who knows? But I don't believe I can. I don't believe I can't. And if it's something I want, I just move to it.
Right. And
I notice I just move to it or I don't. And even a want isn't true. These are just stories the mind tells as life appears to go on.
Right. You mentioned that there are no new stressful thoughts.
Yes, all recycled. And I've noticed that in every language, every country in the world that I've ever traveled. Gilgamesh is the oldest known written epic, the oldest epic known to man. And it was chiseled in clay, and all of the beliefs that are in that book. And my husband translated this book, so I had an opportunity to look into it. And I saw what I've known for more than 20 years, and that is there are no new stressful thoughts chiseled into that clay stone. We're still living them today. We're still believing them today. And if you think of any belief that we have considered here, talked about today, nothing new, nothing new, nothing new, nothing new, nothing new. And when we look at the question mind and how it just flows and cuts through everything, it just does not have time to get stuck.
Right.
It has no way to get stuck. It's free.
When you say new stressful thoughts, do you mean?
There are no new stressful thoughts.
There are no new stressful thoughts. That's it.
Yeah, and that's, the Judge Your Neighbor worksheet. I designed it just understanding that all thoughts are about I want, I need, you should, you shouldn't.
Oh yeah, right.
And it's all lined out. I don't ever want to, and basically it's your fault. And if you changed, then my life would be better, and of course, so would yours. And that's ridiculous. We've been working under that system forever, and we're still at war with the self, war in our homes, communities, countries, world. It's like a child isn't born when they come out of the womb. The child is born the moment that they become a believer. It's like the parent could say, your name is Emily, and let's say Emily is this little infant in the crib. You say, you're Emily, you're Emily. She's just goo goo gaga.
Right.
She's not gonna, that means nothing to her. When she gets a little older, Emily means nothing to her, nothing at all. And then in some moment, you say, you're Emily, she becomes a believer.
Right.
And in that moment, she's born with whatever it is. Like you say, it's a tree. The moment she becomes a believer, she's born. She is separated out. And who did it? Not the parent, the believer. The mind is identified as this.
Right.
As I.
And before that, she was not that.
She was only what you believed her to be, and she was not bothered. She was a non-believer.
Right.
And she was nothing. And you said she cries, she's hungry, she's thirsty, she needs her diaper changed, but she never told you that. And you interpreted her crying as that. And good. You change her diaper, you feel better. But we say she this, she that, she this, she that, she wants up, she wants down, she's sleepy, she wants to get, and she, it's a wonderful story, and there you have it.
Right. Can a depressed person get out of being depressed without medication or therapy?
It would, I know that I did. And if I did, from the tomb that I was living in, that if I can, I don't know why anyone else couldn't, and I don't know. But I know it's possible because I've walked that.
Right. But even for me, it's hard for me to say I don't know what one other person's depression is, but as you talk today about stressful thoughts.
There are no new ones, so I know what they're believing.
Right.
There are no mysteries. It's over. When you know your own mind, it's over. Once you understand mind, the mystery's gone. So that's the end of seeking anything.
So let's say, if I have a stressful thought, she doesn't love me, whatever. I can think of many. And let's say the guy in prison, whatever he believed, and then he murdered
his girlfriend.
What's the difference? I didn't murder. I had the same stressful thought, but I didn't do what he did.
Well, if you look at the stressful thought, she doesn't think I'm worthy. The mind shows all the proof. Well, yours trails so far and then comes back. But his just keeps showing all the proof that it's true, what he's believing about her. And then all of this that's holding it up, it's huge. And that's how murder happens. But if you question this one, like she doesn't think I'm worthy or worthwhile, is it, and it starts to show you all the proof and you question it, is it true? Then this drops.
Right.
And you can wait to see, can I absolutely know that it's true? And what I like to do, it's like if I have the thought you don't like me, I absolutely know that, number one, it's none of my business, it's ridiculous. And number two, that I can't know your mind, because mind is, there's one mind, but if you put it all together, it's one schizophrenic mind, one multiple personality mind. It's all in time and space. It just appears to be happening differently, but if you put it all together, it's one mind, no time in it. So it appears to be in time. If I had the thought, he doesn't like me, immediately I would just say, do you like me? And use your mind. And if you said, I don't, then I think, that's interesting, our minds match. And if you said, I do, I think, well, that's interesting, nice to know the truth. And I believe everything you say, just like I believe on everything I think on one way or the other. It's just mind respecting mind.
Right.
Mind respecting itself, mind not at war with its own mind, which is every mind, all mind.
And any answer?
Mind always met.
Right. Were you?
And it's not valid, because it's I understand how mind changes. That's how it appears in time. So I have the thought he doesn't like me. It doesn't do a lot of good to ask you, because 10 minutes later you might like me.
Right.
So mind changes like that, depending on the story appearing that it's attached to. I
think, is there something said about, if I'm hurting and you're not, then can you be of assistance to me?
Yeah.
Right. There's some.
Without both of us being in pain, and
right.
one of us is legitimately in pain, because let's say you really are, maybe you've lost an arm or a leg, or you've broken your leg or something. And if I'm projecting what that must feel like, then now we're both in pain, and I can't assist you in the way that you deserve.
Right.
And the way that I deserve, because to assist you is where my true nature, our true nature, lives itself out at the highest level. But if we're both suffering, your leg's broken, that's legitimate. I'm projecting, that's not, let me get over it and help. And we'd get over it if we could. But as long as we're believing, as long as we're projecting what that would be like, then, it's two people suffering.
At the same time, sometimes when people speak to me, I detect sort of a note of truth to what they're saying, or not. What is that? Is that true?
Well, they're matching your belief systems. And maybe they've been a little hidden to you. And maybe they haven't, but it's ringing true with you. People refer to it as you're of the same mind. Mm-hmm. And that can be a negative or a positive.
So,
in other words, you can say, I hate living, and someone else can say, me too. Well, you're of the same mind, and it just rings true. Yeah, and
you're just like bonded for life until something is where we don't agree or something. And
until we project that, my life is miserable and it's your fault, and then we disagree.
Doesn't sound, right? That's just sounds inevitable, though, that you would have to separate from someone at some point.
Well, that's the way of it.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. People die, change their minds, and actually, you know, bodies, it appears, we just come together, we move, and then the mind just tells the story about what's going on, what it believes is going on. And actually, it just is what it is.
Right.
When the mind has gone as far as it can possibly go, it has to stop because it cannot project any further. So, for example, if you're, if someone pushes you out of an airplane, and it's like you're terrified of heights, and you have a parachute on, and they say it's going to be okay. You have 2 parachutes, if one fails, you're going to be okay, the other will open. You have a backup. And they'll tell you the story of how they never have to use the backups, all that kind of stuff. So just terrified because you're believing your thoughts. Believing thoughts like, I can't do it, this is too frightening, I'll have a heart attack on the way down. When I hit the bottom, I'm going to break both legs.
Right.
I'm going to hit a tree. I won't know how. All those thoughts. So, jumping is not frightening. Your thoughts about jumping are frightening. So, let's say you're terrified and you jump anyway because you have the thought, I have to get over this fear, or this is ridiculous, and you just jump. Okay, so you pull the chute, and it doesn't open. And so then your mind starts really moving. You're still very, very frightened, but you pull the next chute and it doesn't open. And at that point, there's no help. So the mind stops because it cannot project death. There's nowhere it can go with it. So it just stops. It has believed a truth. There's nothing I can do. And that is a wonderful truth. And when the mind really gets that, it stops. And then when there's no hope, when the mind really understands there's no hope, it just enjoys the trip.
Really?
No decision, no fear. And that's really the point of the story. There's nothing you can do. So the mind, it understands that it is not in control. And no decision, no fear. So I like to share with people, the worst that can happen on the way down is a thought. Nothing more terrible than that has ever happened, and nothing more terrible than that ever will. It's like if someone's coming at you with an instrument to torture you. You are absolutely living in a state of grace. You are not being tortured. But the mind will project the next moment.
Right, in other words, you're being pursued.
Let's just say you're tied down on a table.
Right.
And you're fine. And they're coming at you with an instrument, and let's say you've been tortured for days, and they're coming at you again. And in that moment, you are not being hurt.
Right.
But you project what they're going to do next. And that's where the pain is. And every time I take people to those points and I ask them what they were believing, they tell me. I ask them to go back, and it's amazing that they'll go back there because their mind will do everything to avoid that, so they don't have to live the torture again in their minds. But they will go back for me, and then we find out what they were thinking in those moments. And then we look at the actual torture. And I ask them what was more painful, the thought or the torture. And 100% they will tell me their thoughts. And that is without exception.
At 43, after 10 years of deep depression and despair, my real life began. What I came to see was that my suffering wasn't a result of not having control. It was a result of arguing with reality. I discovered that when I believed my thoughts, I suffered, but that when I didn't believe them, I didn't suffer, and that this is true for every human being. Freedom is as simple as that. I found that suffering is optional. I found a joy within me that has never disappeared, not for a single moment. True, that's true.
Well, it's true for every human being if they were just in touch with it. No one believes what they think. They attempt to believe that they believe what they think. That's why inquiry works so well. It just wakes people up to what they already know.
Right. I definitely can see that. It's a great book. Because I see it in the questions. You know, there's a stressful thought, and then you start to examine it and inquire, and